Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, I am joined by Bemidji State Women's Hockey Senior and Captain, Clair DeGeorge. Welcome to the podcast, Claire, and how's everything going?
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me today. And everything's going pretty good. It's a nice day here, so just going to enjoy that.
Yeah, and I want to start off this podcast talking about this season. Your team is currently 1-6-1. What are some things you have taken away from this year, both positively and negatively?
Yeah, no, obviously it's been a tough start for us. We've definitely had a bunch of COVID things hit at first, so set us back a bit. And then we we need to work a little bit more on our systems and just getting that drive to win some. We definitely are. We're a good team. We got some good talent and a lot of hard workers. So we're working really hard right now to turn that around.
Now, what has been the biggest improvement you've made to your game so far this year compared to last season?
I'd say this year I've worked a lot on just my confidence in hockey. It's always hard to um, play well when you're not as confident as you should be, and it's a huge mental aspect to that. And so over the past year, I've been able to work on the mental game. Just with COVID, you can't be on the ice as much as usual, so it's an area that I believe a lot of players have started to focus on more, just with more research out there in the sports world regarding it. And so that's an area that I believe I've improved on a lot.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of adjustments people have had to make because of the COVID season. What has been the biggest adjustment you've had to make to college hockey this year with everything going on?
It's a good question. There's obviously you could bring it down to like wearing masks on the ice and all those things make it a little bit more difficult. I'd say for myself, I'm from Alaska, so getting being here with everyone else who is most of my teammates are from Minnesota, so they can just go home when we have isolation or quarantine that happens to come about, which it's happened to pretty much every team. I don't think there's one team that hasn't had a case yet, but that's definitely hard. It's more of like if I do have to go into quarantine or isolation, I can't go home. So stuff like that's just been probably the hardest part.
Yeah, and what's it like to play this season without any fans, and has that been an adjustment for yourself?
And it's kind of funny. We in our rink here we have the the speaker system just plays cheering people, and you're sitting on the bench and you hear a bunch of cheering, and it's nonstop, and it's funny because you notice it more than when there's actual fans in the crowd, which is interesting. But it's not something that bothers me personally very much. It's just, I guess it's weird looking up in the stands and not seeing people there. It is nice to be able to see that, but once you get into the game and you're more focused on trying to win, it's something you don't really notice.
Now, how do you try to bring the energy on the bench without any crowd noise off the bench?
Yeah, no, it's obviously a huge aspect of the game, and we just try to encourage each other and stay positive on the bench. And whenever there's a huge save or a big block or someone makes a good play, we always try to encourage everyone to get up and make some noise, because we're not going to be getting that from people in the stands.
You've also had to adjust to many schedule changes throughout the season. How have you mentally stayed prepared for all those changes and postponements that have happened to your schedule so far?
Yeah, no, it happens all the time. I mean, in the next hours, something big could happen. You just never know. It's just being flexible. It's been a great learning experience for just being flexible, that's for sure. And just staying again on top of your mental game, like realizing like when something does happen, that it's not the end of the world. It'll turn around and it's just a little hiccup or a detour. And it's adversity, really. Again, back to the mental game. It's how do you deal with the adversity and push through it and use it to your advantage instead of let it hold you back.
Yeah, and how has your preparation changed this year because of all those schedule changes? Because in a normal season, you kind of know who you're going to play in the weekend, and you kind of find their strengths and weaknesses and work on that during practice. Has that had to change because of the schedule changes that constantly happen in the WCHA?
Yeah, no, we've been fortunate enough that we haven't had a huge switch right the week before a game, and so we've been able to keep our video straight. Like if we're playing Mankato, we'll watch them all week, and it's not like it's switching to St. Cloud last minute. So we've been pretty fortunate with that, and in a sense, it's a little bit I don't want to say it's easier for us, but we've played these teams for 4 years now, and we know their tendencies off the top of our heads most likely, and then just looking at their video, obviously to see new ones. But it's should just say we're just fortunate enough we haven't had to deal with that yet, and I'm sure if it did come down to that, we could just come together real quick and figure it out.
Yeah, and 3-on-3 overtime has also been introduced to college hockey this year. What's has that been like for yourself being an offensive player and having more space on the ice and more offensive chances because you scored that overtime goal against St. Cloud, and I feel like the 3-on-3 overtime really shows the skill level of players like yourself.
Thank you. No, I love 3-on-3. It's so much fun. I generally enjoy skating up and down the ice a lot. So the 3-on-3 definitely get to show that aspect of the game. And just like you said, it brings out more creativity. There's so much room on the ice. There's so much you can do with the puck, and then just realizing that you can go anywhere. There's no offense. There's no defense in a sense. Like you just got to make sure someone's back at all times. But it's an aspect of the game that I enjoy that it's there because it makes it a little bit more fair in the sense of like we're not just going to a shootout and having just be like goalie against goalie and like who can score first. It's more of a it feels better when you win that way, or I guess in a sense lose that way. But yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite things. I know you don't want to get to overtime 3-on-3, you just want to win 5-on-5, but it's a fun aspect to the game.
Yeah, I also think it shows the defensive side of a lot of players as well because if you make one little defensive mistake, it can cause an odd man rush and a potential goal. So that's something that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about, especially when it comes to terms of the 3-on-3 overtime.
Oh yeah, yeah. We work on it a lot, and that's one of the big things is man on man. Don't let there be like a 2-on-1 rush or breakaway even.
Yeah. Now, talk about being captain this year and what is the process for being the captain of Bemidji State women's hockey?
For me in a leadership role, I see myself more as just I'm going to be the one out there with the hard work and trying to show them through actions and be a role model that way. I'm not much of a talker in the locker room. I'm not going to be the one standing up with a huge speech before a game. I'd say our other captains they're very good at that, and I let them have that one. I definitely do say a few words, but not I'm not a I guess a TED Talk kind of person in that sense. But yeah, I always try to go out there and work as hard as I can and show that to the younger kids. Like these are the sacrifices you need to make. This is the kind of work ethic you need to have to be able to is play at this level and improve every day.
Yeah, and talk about this year's freshman class. How have they looked like in your eyes, and how have you tried to help their transition into college hockey, especially since this year has been so odd and you've never experienced it before?
Yeah, no, I can't even begin to try and sense how they might be feeling and all of this. And the best thing that all of us older kids can do is just be there for them and help them through these. I mean, they're in the dorms in rooms by themselves, and that part's probably pretty difficult for them. And we try to get together as a team as much as possible in a sense, but staying safe with COVID. And so that makes it a little bit difficult with that. But just in the sense of on the ice, they're all great. They all work very hard. They're fast and quick, and they bring a lot of skill to our team. And I know that they are going to bring a lot to Bemidji in the future as well. And so it's really exciting to see them come up and how they've become more independent in this year, especially being thrown into a pandemic. So I know it's hard.
Yeah, and you're scheduled to play Minnesota Duluth this upcoming weekend. What challenges does that team bring, and how do you plan to have offensive chances and score goals against that very defensively sound team?
Yeah, no, Duluth is a very good team. They've always been, like you said, sound defensively, and they have a lot of powerhouse forwards that could cause a lot of havoc in the offensive zone. And so I do think that making them play defense more and getting shots on their goalie will help us a lot. They don't have Rooney anymore, which will be a little bit helpful. But again, if you don't get shots on net or scoring opportunities, the puck's never going to go in the net. So that's just one area we really need to focus on right now. Is I think we got the defensive systems down in our end going a little bit better now, and so we need to just get in the offensive zone, get the pucks on net, and figure out how to get the puck in the net once we're able to do that.
I have to ask you, you scored that OT winner against St. Cloud State this year. Talk about that goal and what that meant for your team because it was just so much fun to watch as a fan of yourself because it was just a great goal.
I don't know. Thank you. It was definitely interesting. I've never really, um, I don't know if I've scored in a 3-on-3 overtime, but I believe the St. Cloud started with the puck, and then we basically, like I said, it's that important like defensive aspect, just stay man on man. And the players I was out there with, I believe it was Kara Worth and Reese Hunt, and I believe all of us stayed on our players and played some very good defense. And then eventually we were able to get the puck off their stick, and then it was just a quick little rush up the ice. I mean, I think all of us were pretty tired at that point and ready to change, but then somehow I ended up in front of the net, and Kara Worth came in and took a nice, I believe it was a slap shot in from around the top of the circles. And I told myself, I was like, nope, don't move. You're screening the goalie and you're gonna tip this. So that's basically what ended up happening, and it was huge for our team, especially since it was a win. I think it was our first win this season, and it was a tight game and just one that we needed to start building up our self-confidence. And so it was a good win for us.
Now, I want to transition and talk about the beginning of your hockey career. You're from Alaska. Talk about growing up there and how did you start playing hockey?
Oh, that's a good question. So I love Alaska, definitely a huge part of me and a huge part of my heart. And I love going back there in the summers just to be with my friends there and hiking and all that stuff. But growing up, I started out figure skating actually, and so it's a little bit of a, I guess, embarrassing part of that. But I switched over to hockey when I was like 5 years old because when I was around 3, I think my parents said that I begged them to play hockey, and so eventually they gave in and let me put on the hockey skates, and they couldn't get me off the ice. So
Now, did you have a favorite player growing up and do you try to model your game after their game?
um again, I didn't really have a favorite player growing up. We didn't watch much hockey in my house. I come from a swimming family, so we watched a lot of swimming. Um, but I'd say, in a sense, we had like the Alaska Aces ECHL team. They folded a couple of years ago, but I grew up watching like Kimmy Daniels and I want to say it was Wes Goldie. I don't know. I had some players that I watched on those teams that I definitely liked, and I tried to model my play after them. But once I got older for the NHL, I really liked Datsuk, and I know he was a huge playmaker, and that's one of the things that I like to do the best. So I try to role model.
Have you ever tried one of his moves in like a shootout during practice or anything like that?
No, but I should.
I think
I'll do that this week before for our games.
now, what is the hockey scene like in Alaska? Because I know it's growing a lot because players like yourself, Jeremy Swayman, and the Hickle sisters have had very successful careers being from that state.
Yeah, no, it's again, great question. So the unfortunately in the past few years we've had like the ECHL team go down, and now UAA and UAF are really um, in a tough situation right now. They are possibly going to fold. Um, but in a sense, the hockey world, like you said, we have been, I guess, extrapolating out to other states, and it's more of like leaving early in a sense, and like going to high schools and playing on juniors teams and getting yourself exposure in the lower 48 has really helped all of us. Know both the Hickle sisters, they went to school at Naha, and then they both played Division 1 college hockey as well. And Jeremy, obviously he's out with the Bruins right now, so he's doing pretty well too. And then there's all kinds of other hockey players that have started to make a name for themselves and are starting to come up out of Alaska, and it's awesome to see all these younger players coming up behind us.
Now, before Bemidji, you played for Shattuck St. Mary's. Talk about playing there and how did you get the opportunity to go to that school?
Yeah, it was an amazing opportunity. I would never ever trade it for the world. Um, it was it was a good experience in a sense. I got a lot of independence from it. The schooling was amazing, and just playing with players at such a high level. Coming from Alaska was a huge shock for sure. It's like, oh, there's all these players out here too, all these female players, because I played boys mostly growing up in Alaska. was really my only option. So coming out here was awesome to see that, oh, there are girls that play hockey and love the game just as much as I do. And then I found out about it. I want to say I didn't really hear about it till I was like 12 years old. It all happened really fast. They were like, "Oh, there's this school out in Minnesota. Like, do you want to go?" And it was like I said, very fast, and it was driven mostly by my parents, I would say. But I was down for it. I wanted to be the best that I could, and they're like, "This is an opportunity for you to enhance your skills and play at the highest level," and so I wasn't going to pass that up.
Yeah, what's it like being part of the historic program with so many legendary hockey players that went there before you did, like the Lamoureux twins, Amanda Kessel, and Brianna Decker?
Yeah, no, it's an honor. It was always amazing being there, and they'd come back and see us. I remember the Lambert twins came back a couple times, and then we were fortunate enough to play against them when we played the Whitecaps. Um, but yeah, they being a part of the program is something that I'll hold dear to my heart for a very long time, and I hope to be able to make an impact much like those older girls did in the future.
Yeah, talk about what it's like playing with some of the best hockey players in the world on a daily basis, especially players like Aaron Frankel and Gracie Ostertag, who you had to compete with in practice every day.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. Like looking back now, all these players I've played with that are doing so well. Like you mentioned, like Aaron Frankel and Gracie Ostertag, they're both very high level players at their schools for sure. And um, I keep in contact with them very often, and it's amazing to see their where they're at, and having played against them back then, like knowing what I like where I'm at now, I don't know how much I would have changed, but it's it's always, again, it was an honor to be able to play with them, and their friendships that I've created for a lifetime.
Now, how did your time at Shattuck help prepare you for college hockey?
I'd say just the development. I give a lot of credit to Coach Stafford. He's one of my favorite coaches I've ever had, and he he wanted a lot from us. He made sure that we were giving it 110% at all aspects, and I learned what it really meant to work hard by going to Shattuck. Like you said, that everyone there was high level players, and they wanted to be good. And so going to practice every day was, you were competing. They were still your friends, but on the ice there were no friends, and everyone like bought into that. So having such a high compete level in practice, and having players who were strong, gritty, and who wanted it just as much as you did, it makes you so much better when you're playing against players like that.
Now, what was your favorite memory at Shattuck?
Ooh. I mean, I have a lot of great memories. I'd say the first time winning nationals was definitely one of the highest ones there. So that was my freshman year, and I mean, it was just elating. Like you never really experienced like that kind of feelings before, and so it was just an awesome experience.
Now, you also got to participate in the U18 World Championships for Team USA. What was that experience like for you?
No, that was fun. Again, a huge honor to put on the USA jersey. It always is, and never can never take that for granted. It was awesome just because I got to play with girls who I usually play against, and then again I got to play against like the Canadian girls, Russians, and it just opens your eyes to all the talent outside of the U.S. even as well. And being able to go over to Europe and play in a small country it was really cool to experience that. And um, yeah, that's cool.
Now, talk about your recruiting process and why did you choose to attend Bemidji State?
So I committed relatively young. I'd say at this point I was at the end of my sophomore year. And I'd say the one of the biggest things is that coaching staff, they believed in me. They had faith in me, and and they saw my potential, I should say. And then the one of the major things is I'm in the nursing program here, and they allowed me to be in the nursing program while competing in hockey at the same time. And so that's huge. Most schools don't allow you to be in such a strenuous program, like with clinical hours and everything. It usually just doesn't work out with hockey. And so that was another one. And then it kind of reminded me of home a little bit with the small town and a very outdoorsy areas. So that was a huge one too.
Yeah, and what's it like to play under Jim Scanlon, and how has he helped your hockey development?
Yeah, no, Coach Scanlon, he's awesome. He's always there for us and is a great coach. He developmental wise, he always is pushing me to be better, and he's bringing up all the I need to shoot the puck more, and so he's constantly reminding me like, hey, let's get the puck on net, and he's been helping me a lot with my face-offs recently, so I can thank him for that.
Now, what was the biggest adjustment you had to make to college hockey? Was it the mental side of the game, making quicker decisions with the puck, or was it more just the physicality, playing against players that were 4 years older than you were at the time?
Yeah, no, I'd say it was both for sure. There's always like kids come in and they're usually up to speed with the skating. They're not too, I wouldn't say they're any slower than the rest of us. It's just the mental game and passing the puck harder and being ready for those aspects. And then of course the physicality, playing against someone who's 4 years older than you all of a sudden when you've been playing with someone who is either your age or only a year older. That's huge. I mean, they've had 4 years to put on some muscle and be strong, but at the same time, you catch on pretty quick. It's like they throw you right into a game, and it's either you got to just keep up and get stronger as the years go on.
Now, during your freshman season, you got to play against the Korean national team. What was it like playing against them and growing the game of hockey? Because that must have been fun for yourself.
Yeah, I actually was fortunate enough at Shattuck. They would always come for a month or so and stay at the school. And we would play them a couple of times. So I got to play them the 2 years before that, I believe, like my junior and senior year, they came to Shattuck. We were able to play them. And then we played them again my freshman year of college here at Bemidji. And I mean, it's fun seeing that aspect. I had a friend on the team, actually, Grace Lee. She went to Shattuck and then went to the Korean national team to be able to go to the Olympics. And so being able to see her again and play against her was fun. But yeah, it's a cool experience. I mean, not many people can say they played a Korean national hockey team in that sense. And so it was good to get a good game under our feet and have fun while doing it.
And also during your freshman season, you beat Minnesota Duluth in the first round of the WCHA playoffs. Talk about that series and what does that mean to you getting your first playoff series win?
Yeah, that was huge. And I mean, you can never take those for granted. Um, the I remember we went into I believe we did all three games, and our we just put in our freshman goalie right for that series, I believe, and it was. I mean, they were hard games. Duluth is always a good team, and they're hard to play against. And I believe the last 2 years we've gone down there for playoffs as well and ended up losing. But they it's always a good series against them, and it's interesting to see. It's always been the two of us, and getting to that playoff, just beating them in a sense. They're a big rivalry of ours now for sure, and being able to beat them on their turf, I'd say it's huge, and it's a great feeling.
Yeah, throughout your past 3 seasons with Bemidji, you haven't won a WCHA title. What do you think has to be done to get over that hump and win one this season?
Yeah, no, like this season is much different. I believe only the top four teams will move on. We don't even have a playoff round this year. But at this point, it's going to take, we need to first start getting points. So start putting the puck in the net and just being gritty. We need to stay on what Beavers are known for, the hard work, block shots, good defense, and then just move on to putting the puck in the net, getting shots on net. And I believe we'll be good. It will be good if we can keep that up.
Now, something you've been doing throughout your hockey career is balancing both the hockey side of being a student athlete and the academic side of being a student athlete. How do you balance both those aspects of being in college, and because it seems like you do it at such a high level, because doing research on yourself, you won a scholarship at Shattuck for having the highest GPA. So what's your secret to balancing academics and hockey?
Um, I'm not sure if there really is a secret. It's just a little bit of hard work and putting time and effort into what you want to be good at. Fortunately, I'm very interested in science and I've always enjoyed learning, so it makes it a little bit easier. I'm not saying I always do at, at every moment of the day. There's always those hard times and you just got to push through it, but just a little bit of perseverance and maybe sacrificing some aspects of your life that, you know, might just have to wait a little while. I like to say that there's the three areas of life. You got your social, academics, and athletics, and you can only focus all your efforts really onto two of them to do really well. And so I've just focused on academics and athletics the past couple of years of my life, and I mean it's going well so far. So
We're now in the non-hockey segment of the podcast where I ask you some non-hockey questions. My first one is, what music do you like to listen to?
oh, I like everything. I know that's probably a bad answer, but I really do. My dad was really into the rock and roll, so listened to a lot of that growing up. And then my mom was into the 80s, so listen to that. And then I've gotten into country, and then in the locker room, listen to a lot of pop. So it's huge. If I press shuffle on my playlist, you're not really sure what you're gonna get.
Nice. Now, what is your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, oh gosh. I mean, a lot of my teammates probably would say I have a lot of pet peeves in a sense, but I don't know, just leaving dishes in the sink, I guess. It's probably a big one.
Now, if you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
Ooh. I would have lunch with, I don't know exactly who, but anyone who is super adventurous, just because I like doing those things. I like to pick their brains about where to go, what are the coolest, like, hiking things to do, stuff like that.
Now, what has been your favorite class you've ever taken in college?
I took a neuromuscular relaxation class like my sophomore year. It was really nice just because I took a lot of naps in the class and just did a lot of relaxing things. So that was probably the best one so far.
Now, you've been mentioning throughout the podcast that you enjoy hiking. What is the best place to go for a hike at?
Well, I mean, really, you can't go wrong anywhere in Alaska. But my favorite place of this summer was Reed Lakes out in Hatcher's Pass. So I know most people probably don't know where that is, but if they ever get a chance to go up to Alaska, that would be my first recommended place to go to.
Now, I have to ask you some questions about some of your teammates. Who is the funniest on the team?
I'll give that one to Chloe Lund. She's a freshman this year, but she's hilarious.
Now, besides yourself, who has the best style on the team?
Reese Hunt on ice and off ice, best style.
Now, back to some hockey questions now. My first one is, what should be done to help grow women's hockey? I know a lot of strides have been made with the NWHL and the PWHPA, but is there anything from a media aspect or a fan aspect that has to be done to help grow the sport?
Yeah, no, I give a lot of credit to the older girls right now of what they've done, like Ken McCoy, Hillary Knight, Lamoureux twins, Decker, all of them. They've put a lot of effort towards women's hockey. And back in, I think it was my senior year of high school when Duggan led the I don't want to call it a lockout, but they refused to play at the World Championships until USA Hockey sat down with them and made some new regulations just to make it a little bit more fair. Like that was definitely a starting point in my eyes, just because I started to be more involved with it at that point and um, be included in the conversations and stuff. So that was a starting point, and ever since then, I mean, it's huge with Kendall Coyne getting that skating record for the on the NHL Network that one time, and I think just being able to get these games up on NHL Network, like I said, and all the big TV networks will be huge. But they've already made huge strides, and it'll be it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the next 10 years. And I know they'll be passing the torch on down to us players, and I'm excited to be a part of that.
Now, what advice would you give a younger player trying to make D1 college hockey?
I would tell them to just work as hard as they can. You never know who's watching. Something that's got me really far is just in practice is trying to be the hardest worker on the ice at all times. And people do notice. Like you never really know really what people are who's watching, and so that is probably the biggest and best advice I could give those kids.
Now, what should I do better as an interviewer to improve this podcast?
Um, I don't know. I liked all the questions and everything, so maybe let me think about that one. I can get back to you on it too.
Awesome. Well, is there any shout outs you'd like to give to any of your family members, teammates before we let you go?
I guess just all my Lady Beaver teammates. I'll give them a shout out.
Well, thank you so much, Claire, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I wish you all the best for the rest of the season, and I'll definitely be rooting for you and your team. And you're one of my favorite players to watch. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Again, thanks for having me.
No problem. Take care. Have a great day.
You as well.